So we were doing the verse number 13th of the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Sarvata, so what Bhagavan did earlier, he first made it very sure. He was explaining that I'm going to tell you what is that Jnana Pradartha. And Jnana not as an object of knowledge, but Jnatavya, what you should know, and knowing which you shall get liberated. And then he mentions that this is neither Sat nor Asat, and there was a long debate on it, where Bhagavan sort of explained to Arjuna that this is not something which is an external object that you can refer to as Sat or Asat. That is what was his point. And there was this, there was sentence from Keno Upanishad, and then he's saying, Anyad eva tad viditad atho aviditad athi. So it is something which is different from what can be known and unknown. In what sense? As an object of external object and the knowledge thereof. It's not something which is knowable in that fashion. This is something beyond that. What is it? It is about self-awareness. It is not having that subject-object dichotomy, that there is a knower and there is a known. That sort of knowledge is beyond that sort of that thing. And therefore, in Kena Upanishad, the Acharya is advising the students that if you think you know it fully well, then perhaps you do not know it. On the other hand, if you think you do not completely don't know it, because you know your existence. It's not possible that you don't know anything about Atma. You know, but you don't know enough. And then you're going to meditate on it. That is fine. But if you think you fully know about it, the way you know about a pen or a pencil or a human being, then you don't know about Atma. That is what he's saying, because it is other than what is knowable or what is unknowable. So this asti nasti pratyaya, that it is there or it is not there, that applies to certain sthula or shukshma thing which is outside of yourself. That is the point. And then we had finished it, and then the student may be a little doubtful whether is there at all anything called Brahman, because this person is telling me that this is beyond what is known or unknown, where there could be any description that it exists or it doesn't exist, then perhaps he's kind of making fool of me. And therefore, he's sort of explaining, and he sort of is reasserting this whole thing that no, you don't have to have that sort of a doubt. So Bhagavan is trying to re-establish faith. Brahman is there. You cannot know it like the way you know a pen or a pencil. Doesn't mean Brahman isn't there. Brahman is not there for pratyaksha through your senses. You cannot use your senses to see that. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Therefore, he starts. So the tradition in Vedanta is, we have already discussed this much earlier, there's something called Adhyarapa Apavada. The Brahman, which is nameless and formless, is beyond all knowledge, all sense perception. There is a bit of superimposition that he is Ishvara, he is Sarva Vidyaman, and Sarva Saktiman, all these kinds of Adhyaropas. These are superimpositions, and then you remove them. When the mind becomes sharper and sharper, and finally all the adjectives are removed, what remains is that Brahman. That is the way they go in a roundabout way to take us to the destination. As there's another thing called Sakha Chandra Nyaya. There is a little boy. He wants to see. Mom says, "Oh my God, such a beautiful moon," and the baby doesn't see it, cannot see it, and therefore says, "Mama, tell me where is that moon? I can't see that moon." Then the mother tells the baby, "Why don't you look at this tree?" So the baby looks at the tree. The mother then slowly draws the attention of the child to say, "Can you see there are two branches on the top of this tree?" The baby says, "Yes, I can." Then the mother sort of leads his attention further, saying, "Can you see at the bottom, at the top, there is a split between two branches?" He says, "Yes, I can see that." He says, "Just look between these two branches, which are split open at the top of it. And between these two branches, can you see there is a white spot there, which is dazzling, which is luminous?" The boy says, "Yes, I do," and says, "That is the moon." That is how the Brahman is such a difficult thing to recognize, that the acharyas, the gurus, kind of lead us in a very slow manner. It's a very long evolutionary process of the consciousness where we feel enabled that we can see that truth. Otherwise, we are kind of lost in the jungle of sastras. Sabbajalam Maharanyam, Shankaracharya himself has said that there's a big jungle. You can get lost without a proper acharya who sort of makes sense of the statements in the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita and all the Puranas. It's very easy to get confused. So now the Bhagavan is kind of reassuring Arjuna about the presence of the Brahman. Sarvatah pani padam tat sarvatokshi shiro mukham. Sarvatah smrutimal loke sarvamabritya tishtati. So what does that mean? We had made some sense of it yesterday. Sarvatah, it's everywhere. Pani padam. So it has its hands and legs. Pani is hands and padam. So is pani pada is kind of referring to all the karmendriyas. Tat sarvataha, and that Brahman is everywhere. Akshishiro mukham, and then it is everywhere. It's having, these eyes, the ability to see. So all the jnanendriyas are covered. First thing, all the karmendriyas covered. Now all the jnanendriyas are covered. Akshishiro mukham. And then you have most of the indriyas are kind of located in the head, isn't it? You have the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, everything, except for the touch thing, which is all over the body. Sarvatah sprutimal loke. And then these indriyas, all the jnanendriyas, whatever we have, they are kind of controlled by the owner of this machine, right? And that is that thing that is there somewhere who is guiding this whole process, this whole body-mind complex. And Shrutimal Loke, so it is there with the ability to hear and have Indriya Vyapara. But Brahman doesn't have any Vyapara. That will be clarified. This is basically Adhyaropa. So he's saying that it appears as if he's listening to everything, he's making use of his Indriyas in the Lokas. Sarvam Abritya Tishtati. So it sort of pervades everything and it sort of covers everything and it exists. In what sense? That Chetana thing, which is one only, is kind of spread across all of us and appears reflected in us and appears as different. So it exists. Sarvam Abritya. So there are a few things in that one sloka. There are quite a few things being indicated. One is that this Pratyak Chaitanya, that Sarvam Abritya Tishtati, and this Akshi sees everything, that Sakshi Chaitanya. So there is this consciousness. This Brahman is only one consciousness. We don't have 5, 6, 10, 15 consciousness. We just have one Chaitanya only. But then that sort of appears as different from each other because we are pockets of karma, papa, punya, everything, and we have our own inherited ignorance. And in this complex, that reflection is getting reflected based on our karma, is having one appearance to make. But that Suddha Chaitanya, which is there, that Pratyak Chaitanya, appears as if it's different. And then the next one is saying is that this is also the source of all activities, that Brahman. Sarvata Pani Padam. That means all the karma indriyas. So that is the source of all these. Whatever activities you are doing, that consciousness, without it, nothing is going to happen. And then all the perceptions we do, all the senses, and we see, we hear, we do, the jnanendriyas are kind of becoming active also because there is this agency in that particular consciousness, which is inhabiting in us, in the sense is kind of permeating in all of us, therefore its presence in all. And the presence itself becomes the guiding principles for the activity of the karma indriyas and the jnanendriyas. And then finally it's saying it's sarva adhisthana. And then this whole awareness, that it appears in all of us as different, that awareness that I have these indriyas, I'm doing this, and this kind of abhiman which is also appearing. And the source of this abhiman, again, that alone is there. That is the adhisthana. And finally, it's Ishvara, it's the Lord of the universe. Because sarvama abritya, it pervades and permeates everything. Let's look at how beautifully Shankaracharya Bhagavan Bhashyakara explains it. So he starts with this sabda pratya avishayatvad, because that Vishayatvad asatva asankayam ज्ञेयस्य सर्वप्राणिकरण उपाधिद्वारेण तद अस्तित्वं प्रतिपादयंस tad asanka nivrityartham aha. Why is that sloka? Because the student may be a little confused, because if the sat thing, that atma, is pratyaya or vishaya, why you cannot describe it as is there or not with the help of your senses. Asti nasti vyavahar you cannot do. It's not a cup or a plate that you can refer to and say the cup is there or it's not there. It's on atindriya vastu. It's beyond the sense perception. So a person might have some doubt. Asatva asankayam. In case there is a possibility of a doubt whether absolutely doesn't exist. Sarva prani karana upadhi dvarena. So there is a superimposition. Because otherwise, how do you show what is Brahman? Because, I had once gone to, you must have also gone, there is a temple called Chidambaram temple in Tamil Nadu. So Chidambaram means what? Somebody who is wearing space, that is his body, that is his dress, or whatever. So I went to the temple and I was waiting, and then the priest came and opened the window and he said, "This is Bhagavan." Then he removed that screen which was hanging, and there was actually nothing. He said, if you're looking for Shivalinga, there's nothing. It's Chidambaram. There's just nothing absent. There's space. So to show Shivalingam, what he has done is they have put some lights and they refer to them stars, some metallic stars, and there is a screen there. So that is the Adhyaropa. They'll say, where is Lord Shiva? Lord Shiva here? It is here. And then they remove that. And there is a Vigraha, Leela Vigraha. You can see that, Utsava Vigraha, Nataraj is standing. But real Chidambaram, there is a screen and he'll remove that curtain. And when he removes it, what do you see? There is nothing. So you have this Adhyaropa that behind the screen there is Lord Shiva. When he removes it, actually there is nothing. And that nothing is actually the existence. It is nothing from the point of view of the eyes, because it is Atindriya, but it exists, it's always there. Similarly, how to explain the existence of Brahman, like the door curtain he refers to as Lord Shiva, this Bhagavan is referring to is Sarva Prani Karana Upadhi Dvarena. So he attributes to the Brahman are Indriyas, or the Pranis Indriyas, the sense organs of the Pranis. They attributed that these are controlled by him. He owns all of these. Tad astitvam. Kasya astitvam? Brahmana astitvam. The presence of Brahman is explained. Pratipadayan. That has been established in this sloka. Tad asanka nibrityartham aha. Then he removes that doubt with this sloka. Sarvatah iti. Sarvatah panipadam. Sarvatah panayah padasya asya iti. He has his hands and legs everywhere. That is how he sings Sarvata Panipadam. Otherwise, it will not make any sense. And therefore, he's explaining that his hands is. One second. Charger is kind of. Yeah, so he's sort of referring to this Sarvata Panipadam. His hands and legs are everywhere. And then what? Pada Sasyati Sarvata Panipadam Tat Gyam. That is that Gyatabhya Brahman. Sarvada Panipadam, in that sense, that is the Gyantabhya Padartha is explaining. Sarva Prana Karana Upadhivihi Khetrajna Astitvam Vibhabhyate. Then he explains that he's the Khetrajna. Is the presence of consciousness in all of us, and these Indriyas, the sense organs we have, actually the Khetrajna is different from all this. He's absolutely not having any relationship with our Indriyas or anything, because he's not a biological thing. Is beyond all that, but this relationship is kind of established in order to help us recognize the presence of the Brahman, like the mother refers to the tree to show the moon. The moon has nothing to do with the tree, but the mother explains that the moon, Chand wo dono jo shakhaएं uske beech mein hai. It appears as if the moon has a relationship with the branches. It has no relationship. That's a manner of speaking. Khetrajnasya Khetra Upadita Uchyate. So that Khetrajna, that owner, that this presiding consciousness is explained by referring to where that consciousness appears. Where does it appear? The Indriyas, the body, everything. Khetram cha pani padadi vihi anekadha bhinnam. And that particular, this Khetra, the bodies, the mind-body complexes, they are different in different human beings. They all appear different. Khetra upadi veda kritam vishesha jatam mithya eva khetra khetragyasya iti tad apanayanena jnyatum uktam na sat na asad uchyate iti. And therefore, these khetra upadis, these are kind of names and forms, these impositions on the Brahman are laid, and using that, and that is mithya. These are just appearances, isn't it? What is mithya? In what sense they are mithya? Because they are anitya and they are projections of the absolute. What is nitya? That desakala vastu paricheda sunya, that is atma. That is not this body. And therefore, that mithya rupam api, khetra upadi bheda kritam visesa jatam mithya eva khetragya khetragyasya iti. So this particular thing, actually there is no relationship, but it is kind of referred to. Like, for example, I'll tell you, there are some appointment letters to be issued by the government of India to the class 1 officers. And they are employed by whom? The application, the appointment letter comes, the President of India is pleased to appoint you. The President of India doesn't know them, will never know them. And they will also never meet the President of India unless they actually rise very high in the letter. They may not meet him. But then the letter says the President of India is pleased to appoint you like this, right? That is how it's there. Like, for example, we do a lot of karmas in different prantas in the country, different regions. A lot of auspicious works are done, ceremonies are done in the name of the presiding deity of that area. It could be Balaji Bhagwan in Andhra Pradesh, Jagannath in Odisha. So they sort of attribute it to him. But he has no physical relationship with any of these. Similarly, the Khetra, the pure consciousness, is not actually having a real relationship with these senses. But that is how we sort of do the superimposition. And then we remove that. Tadapanena gyatvam muktam. And that particular thing, that Atma, then finally is mentioned. In what sense? Na sat, na asat. You cannot say it exists, it doesn't exist, because it's not a physical thing that you can refer to. And then upadhikritam mithya rupam api astitva adhigamaya. Even though this whole thing, this relationship is a lie, in order to establish the presence of Brahman and Atma in all of us, Khetragya dharmavat, Gya dharmavat, parikalpya uchyate sarvatah panipadam ityadi. So this is just to kind of make it easy for us to understand that Bhagavan is all of us and he has millions of hands and legs and he's everywhere. This is a description. Tathahi sampradaya vidam vachanam. And then the word is refuted, is not Sunya. Yeah. Brahman is not Sunya, is right. He is neither Avyakta nor Stira. But here, the difference, the statement what is making is relatively different. We are saying that is neither Sad nor Asad. If we accept the Sad, there is Pradhana, and that it will appear. If you only say Sad. If you only say Asad, then Brahman may become Sunya. That was the argument. If I say Brahma is Asad, cannot be visible, then the Buddhist will make a petition that you accept our Shunyata also as a Brahman. And then if you say Sad, then the Pradhana, the Prakriti, which is again Sad, that can have claims to become Brahman. We want to see and explain that the Brahman is beyond the Sunya thing, which is completely absence, and is beyond the Prakriti, even which they claim to be Sat, because it's the Prakriti is actually Brahmadhina. It's beyond that. Therefore, we are saying that it is neither Sat nor Asat. That is what was the explanation by Sankaracharya. Tathai samprada vida vachanam adhyarapavadabhyam nisprapancham prapanchate. So how do you explain this nisprapancha, which has no vistara? You cannot see it, you cannot talk about it. How do you explain it? So prapanchate, you do vistara, or larger explanation of it. You elaborate on the Brahman, doing adhyaropa and then apavada. Like in Chidambaram temple, they'll put the screen and say, Lord Shiva is right behind it, and they remove the door curtain and there's nothing, right? So that is how they focus your attention, so that you are able to understand that Chidambaram is Nirakara, it doesn't have a physical form. But if you, then why do you go to the temple? That's why they have this ritual of having a door curtain and it's removed and you don't see anything. You see stars. But Lord Shiva doesn't have any physical form. That is what is explained to you. So you have Adhyaropa and Apapada. That also is explained, sort of is a reason as to why we do Navaratras or Sivaratras. Because when we do these Upasanas and Bhaktis, I think Sanaji had asked this question some time back. Then should I do Bhakti or not? No, you have to. That Adhyaropana is necessary. And then when you are steadfast in this Bhakti, finally, after doing everything, you can say, yeah, Brahman is one. All these are actually manners of speaking. You're free to say that. But that doesn't come naturally without having done all this Adhyaropa. Sarvatra sarva deha avayavattvena gamyamanaha. Gamyamanaha means, jnayamanaha. Those who know gamyamanaha. Panipadadayaha jnaya sakti sadava sadabhava nimitta swakarya iti jnaya sadabhave lingani jnayasya iti upacharatah uchyante. So actually, these indriyas that we are associating with Brahman, actually there is no real relationship. Okay, so there is this kind of a manner of speaking. This is just a upachara. We are just kind of describing it. It's a manner of speaking to help us take the mind towards something which is extremely subtle and very difficult to understand. So we are attributing legs and hands and these sense organs, the buddhindriyas and the karmendriyas, we are attributing to him. Panipada dayaha jnaya sakti sadabhava. But so as if these are kind of associated with, sarvavad nimitta swakarya iti. And then, because as if these works, these activities, these manifestations, right? And they are kind of controlled by that particular consciousness. And they help us identify the presence of the Brahman two ways. Iti jnaya sadabhave. That is how it is kind of explained. So what is this Adhyarapavada? First you have superimposition, then you have negation. First you have attribution. And after you do the attribution, you do denial. So you say, Brahman is a good guy, he's very compassionate, he's Sarvaniyamaka, he's controller, he's Sarvavyapaka, and Sarvavid, Sarvagyam. Mentioning all that, finally you will say Nirvikara, Nischala, Nishkriya, Nirguna. Exact opposite. So you will talk about Shaguna, Rupa of the Brahman, then you deny all that. That is how we sort of progress from one level of understanding. So these lingas is symbols, these chinnas, markers. What are the markers of the Lord Chidambaram there? That particular door curtain. That is the marker. He's supposed to be behind it, but you remove, there's nothing there. Similarly here, these indriyas and this body and the senses and everything, these are markers of the Chaitanya Satta, which is there in us, but you remove it. Actually, that cannot be seen, that particular Satta. Yasya upacharatah uchyante. This is how it's mentioned. It's a manner of speaking. Tatha Vakhyam anyat sarvata panipadam tat jnayam. And the same way you have to explain this sarvata panipadam, that he has hands and legs and everything. Literally, it doesn't make any sense. Because there is a bit of symbolism in it. This is used only to establish one thing, that it exists, not that he has all this. Sarvataha akshishiro mukham sarvatra akshini sirangshi mukhani cha yasya tat sarvato akshishiro mukham. Sarvataha. So what is that? Akhi and Mukha is just doing Anvaya. It's just elaborating what is mentioned there, as if he has ears, he has eyes, he has heads everywhere in all the living beings. Sarvata Srutiman. Srutihi Sravani Indriyam Tad Yasya Tat Srutimat. So a person who has the ability to hear. That consciousness, does it have? Actually, is there a relationship between pure consciousness and these Indriyas? No. But we are just doing Adhyaropana, superimposition. Tadyasya tat shrutiman loke prani nikaya. Loke here is what? The sarira. So you have these indriyas and everything where there is a prani nikaya, the body. Okay? Nikaya sarvam abritya Samvyapya, it's spread all across. Wherever there is body, there has to be Chaitanya. The Vyapaka is Chaitanya. Vyapya is the Sarira. Chaitanya can be there even without a body. Body cannot be there without Chaitanya. That is the way in which we understand. If there's a person walking, he has consciousness. But can the consciousness there can be there in the plants? Yes, it is there. Is there a human being? No. So that is Vyapaka. Adhika Desa Vritti Samparna. Because it is there in more, it has a bigger space where it is there. We are all limited and temporary. The Brahman is permanent, infinite, all pervading. Wherever you see a person speaking or working or moving, having any ability to do anything, there is presence of Brahman in him established. That is what he's saying. That the Brahmana consciousness is not dependent on the manifestation of his presence through the indriyas, the karma indriyas, the jnana indriyas, to exist. It doesn't depend on us. That's all he's saying. So that was verse number 13. And if you look at Madhusudana, is he saying anything extra? Evam cha sacha, no, that is different. So Madhusudana, evam nirupadhikasya brahmana, that Brahman is without any upati, without name and form. Sat sabda pratyaya avishayatvad swatam kasayam nasadi na asad adi na asad iti anena अपस्तायाम अपि विस्तरेण तद आशंका निवृत्त्यर्थम सर्व प्राणी करण उपाधि द्वारेण चेतन क्षेत्रज्ञ रूपतया तद अस्तित्वम प्रातिपादयन आह सर्वतैति. So he's kind of repeating what Shankaracharya says. It's nothing. All he's trying to say is that chetana kshetrajna rupataya. So this sarira is kshetra, kshetrajna is the atma. So he sort of is present everywhere, having his presence visible to us by a reference to the indriyas of the body. But the senses actually belong to the body. But we are trying to establish a link between, because the senses are subtle, body is more physical. We are trying to establish a relation between the senses and that boss in this body, consciousness, in order to explain its presence. I mean, rest of it is kind of repetition. Tasyata jagrat kale upadhibhutam pindagatam eva पाणिपादादिकं तदेव स्थूलप्रपञ्च अनुभवसंस्कार आधानद्वारा वासनामयस्य. That is what Nilakanta is saying, something different. Prapanchasya karanam. He's saying something interesting. Vasanamayascha sthula prapanchasya karanam iti bijankura nyayena. So you know what? We have desires. And desires, or the kamanas we have, and the karmas we have, these have manifested in the kind of body we have and the kind of karmas and the bhagya, whatever we have. So there is a Vijankura Nyaya, whether the first is the seed or the plant or the sapling. They reinforce each other, they contribute each other. Nyayana, Anayor, Anyunyasmin, Anyunya Sadabhavo, Anyunya Karanatvam cha Astiti. So they're kind of, this Sthula and Shukshma, they are kind of re-establishing the presence, they kind of support each other. We cannot say where it starts, where it goes, kind of thing. Evam sakala prani dhi vasana uparakta jnana upadhikam chaitanyam sakala prani dhi vasanamayam samasti shukshma prapancham abhavasayati. So, this whole thing, it's saying that all of us, that particular shukshma thing, the consciousness is kind of appearing as a desire, as a sankalpa, as a certain movement in our consciousness, in our intellect, in our emotional self, and whatever. And then the samasti shukshma prapancha, that Hiranyagarbha is manifesting, then Virat, and then all of us are coming in, isn't it? And then, so that avabhasayati, it's appearing in all of us. And that is how he's going in a roundabout way to show that how that pure consciousness becomes a certain name and a form, how we are being able to give character differently to different people. Bodies are different, but how do you explain the differences in the consciousness, the differences in the subjectivity or their mindsets? So he's talking about these things like vasana and the karmas and the desires that sort of creates that mental makeup, and all of us become visible through what we do, what we think, what we speak. Okay, so there's nothing much even in Madhusudana. It's kind of repetition of what Sankaracharya is saying. Now let's go to the next verse. So now in the next verse, now he has done already a lot of adhyaropa, superimposition. Now, as an intelligent teacher, he will help us remove them. The door curtain has to be removed, and then will be shown that Lord Shiva is not a physical being. It is pure consciousness, it's Chidambara. And therefore, in order to show that Chidambara, the Rupa of Lord Shiva, what does he do? He removes the door curtain. That is apavada, negation. He said Lord Shiva is here, then he removes the door curtain, physically nothing there. But we are already conscious that Chidambaram doesn't have a physical form. It's much easier for us to fold our hands and pray, but there is actually a wall. There's nothing there. So he's saying, now having established the presence of the Brahman through adhyaropa, superimposition of the indriyas and the karmendriyas and the jnanendriyas and everything in Brahman, having done that attribution, now we will do denial of those attributes or negation of those superimpositions. Next verse, that is verse number 14. What does he say? Sarvendriya guna bhasam, sarvendriya vivarjitam, asaktam sarva bhutchaiva, nirgunam guna bhaktricha. Sarvendriya guna bhasam. He just mentioned, right, that he's having all these indriyas. Now he's removing that particular thing. In case we genuinely believe Bhagavan has these indriyas, Parameshwara, Brahman has these indriyas, he says what? Sarvendriya guna bhasam. It just appears like that. Generally, there is nothing of that sort. That is what he's mentioning. Okay, in case we may have any sort of confusion there, he's removing it. Sarvendriya guna bhasam. It's just an appearance. Guna abhasam. In the Indriya guna, the kind of Indriyas and gunas are kind of appearing as if they exist. Sarvendriya vivarjitam. Why? Because that Brahman is free from all these Indriyas and gunas that we attribute to him. Asaktam, he is not connected with anything. Asaktam means absolutely not connected in. Sarva bhritcha eva, and then he is also bharta. He is also in doing bharana portion of all of us. He has no connection with us. And he has explained it earlier. He's not saying something new. He has mentioned that, I'm Sarvabhrit. In what sense? Like the sky holds the atmosphere. The atmosphere around Earth is held by sky. Is there any relation? He has mentioned, no, there is no real relationship. And yet it's holding. Same way, I'm Sarva Adhisthana, no physical relationship. So Sarva Bhritcheva Nirgunam Guna Bhoktricha. So he is Nirguna. There are no Sattva, Tama, Rajas. Does he have all this? No. He doesn't have all this. He's beyond all the qualities. He's Nirguna, Nirakara. But Guna Bhoktricha. So because I'm attributing these ears and the Sotrendriya, the Ghanendriya, the Rashanendriya, Darshanendriya, the Sparshanendriya, all that I've attributed to him. So I would say as if he's enjoying, as if he's actually experiencing all this. That is for the benefit of our easy, our convenient understanding of him. Genuinely, he doesn't have anything. But let's try to do the commentary of Sankaracharya here. Upadhi bhuta pani padadi indriya adhyaropanad gyasya tadvatta asanka mabhut ityevam artha slokarambha. In case somebody may be tempted, upadhi bhuta pani padadi indriya adhyaropanad, because I have already connected Bhagavan with my hands and legs and ears and nose and everything. In case somebody genuinely believes Bhagavan has these physical attributes, and if I lose my ears, Bhagavan becomes blind. No. Tadvatta sanka. that Bhagavan has this genuinely, that doubt is removed. Ma bhut, it should not be there, and therefore this sloka has been started. Sarve indriyati, sarve indriya gunabhasam. Now we'll break word by word. Sarve indriya gunabhasam, sarvani cha tani indriyani, sarvendriyani, sutradini. Here, ability to hear, see, touch, feel, taste, whatever. Buddhi indriya, karmi indriyakhya, khyani, antakarnecha. And then you have these buddhi indriyas. And then you have karma indriyas. And they have antakarna, manapati, ankara. Antakarnecha, buddhi manasi, buddhi and manas. Right? All 17 are taken into account here. Sorry, or manasi, sorry, not 17, all the 11. Buddhi manasi, buddhi and manas all. Gyeya upadhitvasya. So that gyeya, that here gyeya is gyatavya, not kshetra gyeya, no, not in that sense. Is gyeya upadhitvasya tulyatvad sarvendriya grahanena grihyante. So it is kind of by referring to the indriyas, we are understanding the presence of the Brahman. Apicha antakarana upadhi dwarena eva. And then by just presuming the presence of this antakarana, that superimposition, श्रोत्रादीनाम अपि उपाधित्वम इति अतः अंतकरण बहिष्करण उपाधिभूतेहि. So the internal sense organs like the jnanendriyas or the external organs bhahiskarana are all these physical activities, whether the antakarana is what, that manas and buddhi or whatever. What are the bhahiskarana? All these eyes and ears and everything. Karana upadhihutehi sarvendriya gunaihi अध्यवसाय संकल्प श्रवण वचनादिभिः abhavasate iti sarvendriya gunabhasam. So only because we are genuinely, in order to explain to a boy, the mother says this is 3, this is 2, 3 plus 2, 5. Actually 3 plus 5 have nothing to do with these fingers. But that is how we teach our children when we begin to teach them arithmetic when they're children. So the child continues to say 3 means he will show 3 fingers. Where is 2? He will show 2 fingers. Then after some time, he is able to say 3 and 2 without showing the fingers. So the apavada has happened after Adhyaropa. There's this connectivity that 1, 2, 3 means 1 finger, 2 finger, 4 finger. No, that drops off after some time. Similarly, he's saying that right now, with these upadhis, these names and forms, this appears, there is an appearance as if it has these indriyas and gunas. That is what is explained here. Sarvendra gunavasam sarve indriya vyaparihi vyapritamiva, as if it is involved in the movement and the functioning of our senses. Tat jnayam ityartha, and that is jnatavya, that Brahman is jnatavya. Dhyayatyeva lilayatyeva iti shrutehe. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it's 437. Chaturtha Adhyaya, Tritya Khanda, 7th verse. So the Brahman appears as if it is Dhyayati Eva, as if this thing. Dhyayati here is not meditation. Dhyayati means as if it is using its sense organs, the Jnana Indriyas, as if it is hearing, as if it is seeing, as if it is tasting, as if it is smelling, as if it is touching. No, these is Dhyayati Eva, as if it's using its buddhi indriyas. Lilayativa, as if it is physically being active. That Pratyak Chaitanya, the Atma, is Nirvikara, Nishkala, Niskriya. But it appears as if it is Sakriya. Okay? That is what it's saying, as if it is Saguna. That is an appearance. That is what is mentioned here. Dhyayativa, Lilayativa iti srutehe. Kasmat punah karanat na vyaprutam eva iti grihyate ityatah aha. Then why you, because of what because of a reason you're saying that it is not involved in anything? Once you have mentioned that actually these indriyas are there, he's explaining further. Sarve indriya varjitam sarva karana rahitam ityartha. Because actually it doesn't have any indriyas. This is a relationship we're establishing to explain what is Brahman. Ata na karana vyaparihi vyapritam tad jnayam. So please understand that ultimately the Brahman or the Atma in us is actually not getting involved, that we see, we hear, we say that Atma Purush sab dekh raha hai. नहीं, वो तो ऐसे ही है. Nirakara, Nishkala, Niskriya. It's not involved in anything. But then we do this vyavahara, otherwise we will not be able to make sense of it. Tadgyam. Yastu ayam mantraha. And then there is one mantra taken from Shweta Upanishad. Apani pado javano grahita pasyata sakshuhu sa shrunotya karnaha. That Brahman is what? Apada pani, doesn't have hands and legs. If you look at Jagannath in Puri, this essentially, if you look at this is the Upanishadic concept which is kind of expressed in the physical form of Lord Jagannath. He is Jagannath, right? He controls the whole universe. Does he have legs and hands? No, this is taken from Shweta Upanishad. Why Lord Jagannath is like that? It's a Upanishadic form that people need to meditate on. Apani Pado, he neither has hands nor legs. Lord Jagannath doesn't have. Javano Grahita, Pasyatya Sakshuhu. And then Apadi Javano, it's very fast, fastest than all of us. Grahita, he doesn't have hands, but he receives. He receives all your bhakti, he also gives you punishment. Grahana means also he can return the gift also. So he receives it, returns it, and then he can move wherever you want, but he doesn't have hands and legs. Paschatya Chakshuhu, and doesn't have eyes. We just have two rounds there. Bhagavan physically doesn't have any eyes. Asakshu Sunotya Kannaha. Lord Jagannath also doesn't have any ears. We put those golden ears during the Sunavesh or whatever that ceremony. But he doesn't have any ears, but he hears everything. So this Upanishadic mantra, that particular thing, Shweta is amply explaining Ityadi Saha Sarve Indriya Upadhi Guna Anugunya Anuguni Bhajana Sakti Mat Tat Gyam Iti Evam Pradarsanartho Natu Sakshad Eva Javanadi Kriyavat Bhattva Pradarsanartha. This is a manner of speaking in which we are attributing qualities to the Param Brahman, the Lord of the universe. Literally doesn't mean he is running around. He doesn't have to do any of this. Where will he go? Because he's everywhere. Then you are saying he's Achala. Why? Because there is no place to go. He's everywhere. Then why are you having these kind of sentences? You're creating all sorts of confusions in our minds. The student might ask. The explanation is to make it easy for us to understand that Bhagavan is Sarva Shaktiman. He can go wherever he wants. This is for our grahana because we are running from place to place. There's a beautiful experience I want to share with you. Once I had gone to Brindavan and there was this lady carrying Lord Krishna, in a small dola, in a swing, hanging from her neck like it's a necklace, and there is Lord Krishna sitting in it. And I looked at this lady. I was a little bit curious. That was about 7-8 years back. And I said, Mataji, you're carrying Lord Krishna everywhere you go? And this lady was in tears. And she was a great devotee of Lord Krishna. And she said, हम इनको कहाँ ले जाएं? वो जहाँ मुझे ले जाते हैं मैं जाती हूँ. Where can I take Lord Krishna? Wherever he takes me, I go. Now look at the beauty of that devotion. It'll make you weep if you look at the devotion of such a serious, completely surrendered devotee of the Lord. So actually she is carrying him everywhere because she knows what is the truth. Lord Krishna is everywhere. So wherever he directs her to go, she goes. And physically that Lord Krishna is just an upachara. He's everywhere, isn't it? And this is how he's explaining that it's from our perspective that we say that he hears without ears, he can see without eyes, he can move without legs and hands, and he can do anything he wants. So it's not sakshat, it's not literally what we are trying to convey. We are essentially referring to the sarva niyamakatva. Bhagavan controls everything. That's what we are trying to explain. Andho manim avindat ityadi mantrartha tasya mantrasya arthaha. So there is a Taitari Aranyaka, there is a beautiful sentence there. Taitari Aranyaka is, I think, first adhyaya, second verse or something. So there is a sentence there. The blind fellow saw that particular precious stone. Manim avindat. How can the blind person see something, a precious stone? He cannot. The explanation here is that this is actually a symbolic expression that Bhagavan doesn't require physical eyes to see anything. He doesn't require physical hands or legs to go anywhere. He doesn't need any, the prime minister's powers or anything to punish anyone or reward anyone. He's Sarvaniyanta. He's Sarvavyapaka. He's everywhere. So these are Stutyartha. In order to praise him, in order to create motivation, in order to purify consciousness, we do this adhyaropa. And then when our mind becomes purer and purer, then we can drop these adjectives. Our mind is stable, then we can meditate on Bhagavan even without any name and form. That's what he's saying. Yasmad Sarvakarana Varjitam Jnayam Tasmad Asaktam. First of all, he doesn't have any senses. Sarvakarana Varjitam doesn't need hands, legs, eyes, ears, and therefore he's what? Asaktam. How can he be connected? You have eyes, you look at a beautiful flower, you say, ah, such a beautiful flower. I want to take it and give it to my friend. I want to give it to in a temple. This is what you think. Because you look at a beautiful flower, this Navaratri, you want to buy this. You want to give it to Ma, Divine Mother. But he doesn't have eyes. So therefore he cannot be connected with anything. Because for any connectivity, you need some indriya vyapara. But he doesn't have any indriya, no movement of the senses or sense organs, and therefore he is not connected with anything, not attached to anything. Sarva sanslesha varjitam, and therefore he is free from any kind of relationships. Yadyapi evam tathapi sarvabhritcha eva. Even though he has no relationship, he is the dad of all of us, or he is the divine mother of all of us, taking care of all of us. Yes, she or he has no relationship, but takes care of all of us. That's the beauty. That's the compassion of Lord. Sad aspati sarvehi sarvatra sad buddhi anugama. Because whatever you see, it has to have an adhisthana, isn't it? Even for you to see a snake in a rope, there should be a rope. Can you see a snake on the wall? No, there has to be some foundation for it. Similarly, sad aspati sarve sarvatra sad buddhi anugamat. So in order to say it is there, even if it is faulty, there has to be something. So you confuse maybe a seashell on a seashore as a silver coin. But for that to happen, there has to be a seashell. You cannot see a silver coin without that particular foundation on which there is a faulty understanding emerging. For you to confuse a lady you see as your cousin sister, there has to be a lady who looks like your cousin sister. Without a lady, can you confuse somebody else? I mean, confuse what? There has to be something. That something can be confused as something else. So there has to be some adhisthana. And therefore, that is what is saying that there is that Brahman is there. Nahi mrigatrishnikadayopi niraspada bhavanti. Even if you see a mirage, the mrigatrishna, there is the desert on which it appears is a blue lake. Without the desert, you cannot see it. You require high, very hot climate. You need high temperature in the air. It should be a summer afternoon. Temperature should be very high. Then that full internal reflection takes place, and then sky gets reflected back into your eyes, and you see that blue lake over there. So it has to have a foundation. Ataha sarvabhut sarve vivarti iti, and therefore that Bhagavan, in which way is taking care of all of us? Sarva adhishthanatvena. Is taking care of us by being a foundation for all of us. How beautifully is explaining. Syad idam cha anyad gnasya sattva adhigama dwaram nirgunam sattva rajatamangshi gunehi tehi varjam tad jnayam tathapi guna bhaktricha gunanam sattva rajatamasam sabdadi dvarena sukha dukkha mohakara parinatanam bhaktru cha upalabdri tad jnayam ityartha. First thing, Bhagavan doesn't have any qualities, no indriyas, nothing. But then again, we sort of are doing attribution as if he's connected with all this. Because in order to establish his presence in our dull minds, we do the superimposition. And then in this body, we say, I'm happy, I'm sad. And say, Mere Narayan Purush bahut dukhi hain, kyun? Humne khana nahi khaya. We do this kind of, descriptions of our agony. My inner soul is very depressed. Why? People don't take care of me. They don't respect me enough. An old person can say that. But the inner soul is beyond all sadness and happiness. That is how it sort of is explained. And that is how the verse number 14 sort of comes to an end. And Madhusudana is here not saying something terribly new, but we'll have a look at it tomorrow and we'll do the verse number 15. Tomorrow I'll stop here. I was seeking one feedback from you. Is it okay if we prepone the class by 15 minutes to 7:30 because it's winter? Is that okay with all of you?